Hello everyone, my name is Christianbitarr and welcome to this video. Today I want to make another PFS related video. I haven't really talked about this. If you haven't watched my previous or my older video about if I recommend Prague Film School, then you can click there. But this video is going to be about what I actually learned from the school. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to talk about like the techniques or how you do this or that, but this is generally what I actually learned and something that I'm taking with me till this day from PFS. So the first thing that I learned, and this was like a big slap in the face, it was the fact that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And what do I mean by that? Well, there is just so much more to acting and filmmaking than you actually think there is. Whether we're talking about the techniques, or we're talking about the marketing aspect, the networking aspect, and stuff like that are always behind acting and making film, producing a film, how much that is, how much preparation and how expensive it gets. I mean, stuff like that, generally, specific things that are necessary to actually make film or to act, or required to act. I mean, and I barely knew about agencies before PFS, so it's like, stuff like that are something that of course I learned much more in PFS. The second thing is related to the first one. I think the third thing will also be, it's about the whole business, because the business is way harder than you would think. When I was in PFS, the actors weren't always guaranteed to get projects, or the filmmakers, like the cinematographers, weren't always guaranteed to work. It was very hard because, you had to really get to know the directors and build a chemistry and always also suit or fit the story. So it wasn't always a guarantee, and that made it very unfair for a lot of actors that didn't get a lot of projects. And the same thing is in the business. It's not always a guarantee, and the business is never going to guarantee you jobs. It's very hard, and you have to fight hard, and you need to always work. And what I mean by that is train, like making self-tapes or working the acting muscles, as well as submitting yourself, marketing yourself. I mean, there was just so many things so many elements that you need to have just for that tiny fraction that makes acting or makes you able to act in productions. So it was such a wake-up call for me to learn about all these things in PFS. It was really important because it led to me getting an agency now and getting to know a lot of casting directors and building a network. So that was really cool to learn. The third thing, acting is much more than you think as well. This one is related to the first one, just like the second one somewhat, but I didn't really know. I thought acting was like, okay, pretending to be someone else, I mean, that was my view on acting, but I didn't really think much else of it in that way. I mean, I was like, okay, stepping on someone else's footsteps type of scenario. How do you approach or get into that state of actually stepping on someone else's footsteps and portraying that person to an extent that you actually get or someone believes you? I mean, it requires not only building up to that point, creating character, like biographies, which is talked about a lot in Stanislavski, which was one of the courses in PFS, but also the body, which I didn't really think about. The body, the voice, and embodying the character physically was one thing that I didn't really think about much. Character acting, that was so unique to learn. All these things, like learning about, stuff like dancing, yoga, movement, these things I didn't really think about because I felt like it was like cringy, and it feels silly. Or rhythm, like clapping the hands and waiting for someone else to do it and remembering that. It's hard to explain it, but that was one of the first things we did. Then after you have like, when I took the exam, I started to understand what they meant, because acting is like a dance. So it's very hard to describe, but this is generally something that really hit me when I finished PFS, and I started to really understand why the body is just so important and looking at the films and understanding how powerful someone's voice is really got my eye and my attention, for instance. So it really can change the whole scene, and that is definitely something that I learned. There's just so much into acting that I didn't really know. I'm not saying I know everything. No, of course not. I'm far from perfect, but but I definitely learned along the way. It was really important for me. Now, the fourth thing is definitely something that I learned, and that was the behind the camera work. Now, of course, I wasn't a DOP or anything like that. I didn't actually do any behind the camera work apart from my own film, where I produced, edited, and wrote the script. But the thing was, because I luckily had lots of projects, and I saw and I heard and I met a lot of friends as well that, cinematographers and directors that were talking about the script, the way they film, the way they think when they tell a story. It provided so much more knowledge. It made more sense when they were changing the lights, or when they were looking for a certain coloring of the environment, just to actually get the feel of the film. And you learn so much along the way. Why does it look better for me if I look into this direction compared to looking there when the camera's there? I'm just making a silly example, but then after you see the film, or when they are editing and you see the process, you understand like, that would look, yeah, it would have looked better. So there's a lot of that knowledge that you gain, because you actually always have a connection and always have people talking about this stuff and filmmakers all around you, which was so cool and such a great experience to gain. So I definitely learned a lot. Now, having produced my own film, that was probably the biggest thing that I've ever done in PFS, and it provides so much more knowledge and inspired me to actually maybe direct something in the future. So we'll see. And the fifth thing is basically going along the fourth point that I made now previously, and that is that everyone is telling a story. This is something I didn't really think about before Prague, because I was thinking that actors are the ones that are, basically controlling the story. They're leading the story in certain directions, or they're acting and someone is filming you and they're talking, and that is basically the story. But I never really thought about or acknowledged the fact that cinematographers, for instance, when they pan the camera the way, or if it's very shaky, for instance, or when they're actually looking into the coloring, the lighting, they're always trying to fit and serve the story as well in their own way, which is really fascinating. If it's a scary movie, for instance, then you might see this instant like camera panning or movement, for instance, just to get a jump scare. I don't know, I'm just making an example. But they're always trying to tell a story as well. And it makes so much more sense when you see the film and understand why they did it in a specific way. They have that artistic mindset as well, which I didn't really acknowledge. Directors obviously have that, because then the film wouldn't be made the way it was made. And the chemistry between the director and the actor is so key. And even casting directors, they need to understand that they need to understand the characters and the descriptions to serve the film, because if you get the wrong actor that isn't really suiting the character, then it might be throwing stuff off, so everyone is a part of it. The editor, for instance, and this is going to be the sixth point, is the editing process. The editing process is humongous. I mean, it's like maybe even the biggest thing in the film process, because that is what actually decides how the film will look, and it decides the story. You can actually direct by editing, because I personally, when I did the two versions of a release now, I'm working the second, it's actually a bit different, and I changed it because I improvised. And the way I'm changing the story and the way I'm actually editing it is deciding how the story will turn out in a way. So editing is very important, and I learned so much by using Avid Media Composer, and that is what I learned in PFS as well, which luckily made it possible for me to edit my film. So yeah, everyone is serving the story, everyone is telling the story in their own ways, and at the end we're all collabing, we're all working together. And when that's clicking, when everyone is clicking and everyone is doing their own part, but at the same time fighting for the same goal, then everything turns very beautiful. And that is usually the best films that I've made, are usually the ones that have had the best chemistry, and yeah. The seventh and the last thing is pretty much close to the second one, which was about marketing, but this one is networking. This one is the one that I actually regret the most, because I as a person am quite introverted, which is going to be a bit of a shock to a lot of people that actually listen to me right now. But I didn't really understand the value of networking until I was in Prague and studied in PFS. Networking is maybe even the most important thing for any actor, even directors, cinematographers, you name it. Because if you're not networking and getting to know other people, they will not look for you. And if they don't look for you, then you won't really gain any job. You won't get jobs because the opportunities won't come, because they don't know you exist. Having not really networked in the beginning when I was in Prague and gotten to know, people there, I had missed opportunities. There are a lot of probably wonderful people that I would have been able to call friends had I actually been talking to them and spent time with them. That made it so that I didn't really get as much opportunities maybe that I could have potentially gotten, because they didn't know me. They didn't know if they could work with me, if I was easy to work with, if I actually fit, because they don't really see my personality. So maybe my personality would have attracted them to give me a specific part that would have suited their film, right? So I started to see specific like bubbles where some people were comfortable with specific actors while others were comfortable with others, just because they knew them better, or they knew them and they didn't know the other ones. And this is so important in this industry for actors, filmmakers, you name it. Because if you don't network, if you don't like submit yourself and basically just market yourself, because you should see yourself as a product. I know it sounds weird, but if you don't try to sell yourself, which I know sounds crazy, right? You're trying to sell yourself. If you don't do that, then no one is going to do the work for you. Of course, if you have agencies and stuff, then that is, of course, going to boost that and it's going to help you. But you still need to make like 90% of the work, right? Agencies do like 10%. That's why they gain like 10% of the income. So by not networking and building that and getting to know friends and on like social media, because there are a few people that I've met in social media, funny enough, in YouTube and stuff, that I have contact with, and it's really fun and fascinating to get to know these people, and it helps. Of course it provides opportunities for future jobs, but then again, it's so beautiful to get to know other people that you would have probably never met had you not talked to them or done whatever you did. Because I think that one of the best things about this job is getting to know more and more people and call them friends, because it just, I don't know, it's such a beautiful thing. And I generally love it. So you shouldn't do it just because you want to fake it, right? Or fake it till you make it. No, I think you should be true, show your personality, be genuine, and be happy and appreciated that you're actually being able to work as an actor. That was it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I didn't talk for too much, as I usually say in my outros. If you have any questions, write them down in the comment section below. I would love to answer them, and please like and subscribe. That always supports me. And yeah, thank you for watching once again. All the best.